Thanks for coming on, Emily.
That's
I know
all
it was a
good.
long drive for you to get here.
Fine.
Congratulations, by the way. I saw this morning that you found a space. Tell me a bit about that. What do you do?
I was looking for a space for ages because I currently subcontract out of a clinic, but I'd say like 90% of the people that come to see me at the clinic are referrals I've brought in. And I was like, well, why am I giving 30% of my...
They work on a 70-30 split, don't they?
So I was like, why am I doing that if these people, I'm bringing my own clients in? So I spent like 6 months trying to find a space, and I was in no rush, but I was like, when I see it, I'll know. And my husband actually found it, and it's this new like co-working space in Pagewood, but the way that they've fit it out is so cool. They have infrared saunas as well, and a little gym, and it's got this indoor outdoor area. And the office that I chose was like I think you saw like all the games and stuff, so I can incorporate that into my assessment process.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool.
So when do you go in there? Is that soon? Like, are you gonna?
So basically, I don't even have to rent it out on a contract. I can just book it in when I want it. The room, and I go in when I want it. But my mum, who runs her own kind of business under the NDIS, is thinking of contracting the space, in which case I would just rent it off them.
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
Sublease it off them. So yeah, I can just book it in online, pay by the day, which is perfect for me because some months I might need it 3 days, some months I might need it 1. And I just pay as I need rather than paying this big lump sum.
Well, that's a good setup.
Yeah, it's honestly, it could not be any more perfect.
So tell me a bit about your journey then. How did you get to this point? And I know you call yourself the playful psychologist. How did that come about?
So basically I went through all my uni. I was at uni for almost 7 years, and then I graduated and I got my dream job straight out of uni, but I just felt like I was in this rut. After a year, I was like, oh my God, is this as good as it gets, sort of thing. And I felt like everyone was really caught up in like following this cookie cutter model of doing therapy that just didn't work with, number one, my personality, but also number two, the kids I was seeing. These autistic kids didn't want to sit there and do worksheets, So I started getting really creative in ways that I could engage them. And then one night, out of honestly sheer boredom, I just started an Instagram page. I had no website, nothing. I just started the Instagram and thought like, it'll be a fun way to just share therapy ideas. And it just took off from there. People were asking me where they could buy the resources I was making. So I made a quick website, and I'm really passionate about making information accessible to everyone and making sure that like especially parents, all parents have access to good quality information that isn't going to break the bank.
Yeah. It's a huge industry. It's a huge space. And I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because there's so much misinformation out there at the moment, and parents are just so confused. And I know you do a really good job at making things simple for people to understand. What exactly do you do then? What kind of patients do you see? What kind of conditions do you usually treat?
So under the Playful Psychologist, I primarily do assessments at the moment. I'm not necessarily offering one-on-one therapy, but in the clinic, when I'm working in clinic and not on maternity leave, I see a lot of neurodivergent kids, so a lot of autistic kids, ADHDers, lots of anxiety as well. But yes, I think I'm really wanting to focus a lot on the assessment process as well, because the assessment process can feel very stressful for families. It can be very expensive for families, and families aren't talked through the process of what it all involves, and it can be really stressful. And it's just like, this life-changing thing, trying to figure out how to support your child. But a lot of these families are coming and they're like, no one's even explained what the process involves or what this means for us. And, a lot of grief comes along with that as well. Like, my brother's autistic and he's the best guy ever. Like, he's my best friend, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, like, hopefully there's, a disability in the family. No one thinks that. So I think it's about making sure that you can guide families through and support them in a way that feels accessible and at reach for them. Yeah.
There has been a huge uptick in the amount that people are talking about neurodivergent stuff and anxiety and ADHD and autism, both in children and adults. Do you think it's becoming more prevalent, or are people just more aware of it these days?
I think it's definitely, we have more information to understand what things like ADHD and autism can actually look like. I think 20 years ago, we had this really stereotypical view of what, like, so for example, ADHD, we had this very stereotypical view that ADHD was the little boy bouncing off the walls, not able to sit still and all this sort of stuff. And if a child presented and didn't fit that cookie cutter mold of what we assumed ADHD was, they didn't get the diagnosis. And now I think our understanding of these diagnoses being a full spectrum of presentations has really evolved and helped us, pick up these things a lot earlier. And I'm finding as well, when it comes to adults being diagnosed later in life, it's often when their children are going through the assessment process and, they're answering all these questions, doing all these assessments, these questionnaires, and then they're like, oh my God,
that's me.
This is me.
Yeah.
And then they're coming for assessment. That's happened to me about, I'd say 15 times this year where I've assessed a child, and then the parent has come back and been like, hey, like, my turn.
So do you think there is a genetic sort of...
Yeah, there absolutely is a genetic link with everything, with depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD. It's not to say that if you have ADHD or you're autistic yourself that your child will 100%, have that same diagnosis, but it definitely increases the likelihood for sure.
Yeah, okay. So why are people talking more about it than now? I know there's a lot more awareness and there's social media that comes into play too. Do you think people are actually getting autism more these days and ADHD more these days? Or is it purely just because there's more awareness?
I think that I don't think it's that, like, I think there's a lot of fluff out there that says like, oh, if you, like, Trump came out and said, if you took Panadol while you were pregnant, you're going to have an autistic kid. Like, like there's a lot of that kind of crap in the media, but I don't necessarily think it's like all of a sudden we're seeing this increase in the prevalence of something like autism. I think it's just that our assessment protocols have gotten a lot better. Our understanding of autism has gotten a lot better. And I don't know about you, but like, my family's from the Middle East, and back then it was like this shameful thing if something
culturally,
it was hidden. You didn't want this thing. It was like you were like, oh, my daughter's autistic, and you were met with like my condolences, or it must be a parenting issue sort of thing. Whereas now we're really realizing that that's not the case, and it's not the be all and end all. It's not about focusing on what the label is. It's about focusing on what that label means and what that means for that person, and understanding how their brain works and supporting them so that even though their brain might work differently to the neurotypical person sitting next to them, they can still thrive just in a different way. Yeah.
So what are we getting wrong then about ADHD and autism?
In regards to like our stereotypical understanding. I think, like, let's talk about ADHD in females, for example. So, like I said before, we've got this idea that ADHD is the boy bouncing off the walls, unable to sit still. That's really
what
loud.
I see it as. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are the same.
Totally. Yeah. Really loud, really disruptive, because that's the only information we've been fed. Yeah. But a lot of the time, girls don't fit that mold. They're high achievers. They're socialized to be quiet and just get on with it. They mask. They have internalized hyperactivity. So the hyperactivity is going on in their own brain, not necessarily bouncing off the walls. They might have hyperactivity, but they might fidget more quietly, whereas a boy might bounce a little bit more, exuberantly. Like these sorts of things we're missing. I think as well, girls try and fly under the radar a little bit more just by nature. So they learn to mask things, they learn off their peers, and then they fly under the radar. Teachers aren't picking it up, and it gets missed.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a different question now.
Yeah.
If I was to try and diagnose myself, is there a telltale sign or something that I can definitively say, I've got these traits, therefore I've got a level of ADHD?
I think it's definitely the best place to start would be, going to see a psychologist and getting the full assessment. But in terms of like flags or, light bulbs that might be going off, it would be in adulthood, it would be things like being really, really forgetful. Not just like, oh no, I forgot my keys one time, or oh, my glasses were on my head and I didn't realize. It's being like quite forgetful, missing appointments, losing things easily, getting really easily distracted. So like you go upstairs to get the washing to bring downstairs, but on your way to get the washing, you make the bed. You do this and you do 10 other tasks. You come all the way back downstairs and you're like, oh, where's the washing? I never brought it down, that sort of stuff. But I think it's also about the impact that has. So if that's something that, you're like, oh yeah, that happens to me, but it's all good. Like it doesn't really impact my life anymore. It hasn't had a huge impact on me. Then maybe it's not a clinically significant level of distractibility or hyperactivity. Whereas if it's truly having an impact on you, then that might be something that you might want to explore further. We often see as well really high anxiety when we look at, I have never met someone that is autistic or has ADHD and doesn't have some element of anxiety as well. And I think that stems from as well trying to get it all done and not really quite understanding why I'm different. Why is this harder for me than it is harder for the next person, the person sitting next to me? And they have to work so much harder to get things done that might come really easily to their neurotypical peers.
And then that's impacting them and therefore giving them a level of anxiety as well.
I think as well, like if we're talking about ADHD, I can't remember the specific stat, but it was like kids with ADHD by the time they turn 15 have heard like, it was something like 30% more negative comments than their neurotypical peers. And that's, coming from like you never listened to me. I asked you to do this and you didn't get it done. Why didn't you do what I told you to do? You're so naughty. Sit in your chair. Stop moving. Stop doing this. I told you to eat your dinner. Why haven't you brushed your teeth? All these negative comments that go, well, you internalize that. At some point, kids are internalizing everything that we're saying to them. And if we don't understand what ADHD means for a child, and that's the language that they're soaking in, that's going to absolutely impact their self-esteem, their self-concept, and their anxiety levels.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what do we do instead then? So I'm thinking of my situation. I've got a boy and a girl. My daughter is very different to my son. So my daughter can sit down for 2 or 3 hours and colour in or paint and not get distracted by anything. Whereas my son is the typical boy where he's bouncing around off walls and sometimes he doesn't listen. You have to repeat something 2 or 3 times. Naturally, you get a little bit frustrated. So instead of saying those negative things, what should we be doing instead?
I think it's about like every child's going to be a little bit different. I've got 3 and I'm in a very similar boat where my 2 boys are so different, like to the point where I'm like, what's going on here? Like one's got like a curly, beautiful brown afro and olive skin, and the other one's blonde, has a blonde mullet and green eyes. Like they're just so different. Yeah, even personality, like honestly just couldn't be further apart. But my oldest is like that. He's, high energy, high sensitivity, and that sort of thing. And we find that for him, like using visuals, using things like timers, that really works for him, but that might not work for the next person. So I think it's about just if you're a parent and you're just like concerned about how to support your child, it's about maybe trialing a few things and letting them know, hey, we're going to trial a few things and just see if this helps you stay on track or if this helps you get your special jobs done. And if it doesn't help and it doesn't work, then you let us know and we'll try something else. So it's about kind of like involving them in the process as well, not just all of a sudden one day whipping out the visual chart and being like, this is what we're doing. It's about just going like, hey, like, let's give this a crack as a family. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can try something new.
I like that. You use the word special jobs. So that's how you frame it to the child.
For mine, it works. For mine, it's definitely like he gets a real kick out of being the helper. He likes to, feel important in that way. He's the oldest as well. So he loves the other day, the boys got into a fight because I asked one of them to throw a pooey nappy downstairs and the other one was like, but I didn't get a chance to throw them. It's just so silly. But he gets a real kick out of being in that big brother role. So we build on that as much as is appropriate for a 5-year-old. And that works really well for us. But I know a lot of other kids may not. So I guess it's just about trying to find that balance of what works. And then if it doesn't work and you're feeling like it's Groundhog Day and you're feeling really stuck, well, that's when it's a great idea just to go get some support support or some advice from a psychologist, best case scenario, they help you and they say, yep, like let's try these things, and they can support you through that. And worst case scenario, they say you're doing a really good job. Nothing else to do here, off you go.
It doesn't hurt.
It's a win-win to get that reassurance that you're on the right track, or that support if you're not.
Okay. I'm going to be a little bit selfish again. Can you give me one or two techniques or tactics to use with my son? And I think a lot of parents will probably resonate with this as well. At night, when you're trying to put them to bed. So he's 4.5 years old. For the life of us, won't listen. He can stay up until 10 o'clock if we left him. What can I do tonight, for example, to help settle him and get him in bed?
I think it's about settling a really consistent routine that you use every single day. So unless, you know, there's a family event on or something on where we're out, we have the exact same routine.
We do that
every single day. That's the place to start, because it needs to be consistent and predictable for all kids. So for example, it might be dinner, bath, a little bit of a play, and then bed and books or whatever.
So consistency, number one.
I think as well, it's about, depending on the child, sometimes it can be, you know, giving those warnings that the time is wrapping up. And for us, we're at the point now, thank God, where we can just be like, 15 minutes till bed, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes sort of thing. And we just shout it out. For other kids, it might be like a timer or a little visual chart or something like that. And there are some really epic timers on like Amazon that are all red. And then as the time ticks, the color changes so they can visually see, like, you know, for young kids. For young kids that, you know, can't read the time. That can be really, really helpful as well if they're visual learners, something like that. And then we found the best thing as well was making it a game to go upstairs, rather than be like, it's time for bed, like everyone walk upstairs. It was like a game of like, you know, jump on my back, what animal am I today sort of thing. Then we go into bed, we read 2 books, and that works really well for us. But I think as well, we have this idea that every kid needs a really calm wind down routine. Most kids do. It needs to be nice and calm. It needs to be collected, and we go to bed in a calm mood. A lot of kids actually need the opposite. They need that last kind of like burst to get the rest of their energy out. So for us, when I say we do like bath time and then we do play, often that play is chaotic. It's crashing, it's tackling. We have like a play couch. They're jumping off things onto it. And it's really just that final release to get all of that out before you know, we transition to bed. And then our wind down is when we read the books in bed and that sort of thing. And that's when we're getting our quiet time. So again, I think don't get caught up in like, you know, seeing the cookie cutter advice that you get online that it needs to be quiet and the room needs to be 21 degrees and the lighting needs to be mood lighting. Like it might not be that for us. It's the complete opposite. It's chaotic. People come over and they're like, is everything okay?
That sounds exactly like us as well. And I've always thought that was wrong.
No.
Because that's what you see online. But we're fighting and tackling and like playing around just before bed.
And it works really well. And then it's just about like making sure whatever transition you're using to get upstairs or to the bedroom is fun and engaging. Because at the end of the day, these kids, like yours is 4, mine's 5, like they don't want to go to bed. They want to hang out. Like it's so age appropriate. But I think we get so caught up in like, no, they have to do this because this is what the parenting book said, or no, they have to do this because this is what I saw my favorite influencer do. And it's just not the case. It's about doing whatever works for your family. And then if you are needing a little bit more guidance, then again, like maybe checking in with an OT and seeing like, well, how can we support that wind down? Like what do they specifically need for their wind down? I mean, I think I'm in a really lucky position that I am a psychologist, so I could help my son figure that out. But I completely understand that that's a privilege that not every parent has. So if you do need the support, definitely go out and get it for sure.
Yeah, those are some good tips. And I think a lot of people sometimes hold back from seeking support. Partly, I think, because there is so much information online. But that's not always the right information, or it's not suited for your child.
I think a lot of the information, you know, like sometimes mine included, I'll not going to, lie, but a lot of the information you see online is generic advice. It's not tailored to an individual. So that's why I think sometimes that's a really good starting point to like buy into different, websites and resources. It's a great place to start. Yeah. But if you've done all that and you're still thinking like, oh my God, like this hasn't really helped us at all, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your parenting. It just means that maybe the advice needs to be slightly more tailored to your specific situation, because every child is different. Like you and I have different kids I don't know about yours, but I parent my kids the exact same way, and I've got 3 polar opposites. That's
right. Yep. Okay, cool. And then is there the word is being thrown out there more and more these days, like ADHD and autism and anxiety. Is there an issue with over-labeling these things too much?
For me, when we're talking about a diagnostic label like ADHD, autism, anxiety, I don't think there's an issue at all. In fact, I think the opposite. I think the more a child knows about their neurotype and how their brain works, the better for them. I would much rather a child say, I'm autistic and this is why this is hard for me, and I am working with my family to find ways to make that specific task a little bit easier, rather than I can't do that, something must be wrong with me.
I don't understand
why can't I do that? Why can all my friends do that? There must be something wrong with me. Yeah. So in that regard, I think labels are absolutely beautiful. Where I think we fall off the bandwagon a little bit is when we use different labels to describe children, like shy. I hate when we use words like that. My own family calls my oldest shy all the time, and I've just started saying like, he's not shy, he's just he's taking a little while to warm up, and when he's ready, I'm sure he'll dive right in. And I've said this a few times, and I think it's so funny because when my child is 17 years old, the one thing I want from him is to wait till he's ready to jump into a situation socially. I don't want him to jump in all guns blazing just because everyone else is. I want him to take some time and go, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing this. I'm going to wait a minute. And then when I feel ready, I'll jump in. So if that's what I want from my 17-year-old, why am I shaming that in my 5-year-old?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? That's the exact response I want when he's a teenager and there's peer pressure flying left, right, and center. So why would I try and get that out of him at 5? So I think in that regard, labels often say more about the adults than they say about the child. If I say, oh, he's a little bit like, come give me a hug, and he says no, and I say, oh, he must be a little bit shy, that's me protecting my own ego. That's me going, oh, he doesn't want to hug me because he's shy, and it's not putting the onus back on me as the adult.
That's a really good point. And I think what happens is that kids obviously retain that, and it becomes part of their identity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, I can't do that because I'm shy. No, you're not. You can't. If you can't do it, that's okay, but it's not because you're shy. Let's figure it out together. What's holding you back?
Yep. And that's when labeling becomes a little bit
that's when
dangerous,
it becomes an issue.
almost, or an issue.
Yeah, and I think as well, labeling can become a bit of an issue as well if we start throwing around labels without fully understanding them. So an example is OCD. People throw around OCD
all the time.
My OCD is killing me.
Look, to be honest, I've said that about myself sometimes.
Oh, that's really messing with my OCD. Oh no, I need the jars for my OCD, the cookies for the OCD, whatever. But like true OCD, that's a clinically significant, like that's a clinical
serious
diagnosis. It's serious. It's debilitating. And I think sometimes when we throw around labels like that, we take away from the experiences of people that are truly struggling in that area.
Yeah. So you see adolescents as well. Do you see adults too?
I see adults for assessment. I don't tend to see adults for therapy, purely because I really love working with kids. I see adults in the scope of like parenting work, and that's kind of, that's where I get my adult fix. Okay.
What are the differences that you're seeing then in children and adolescents? Do you see similar sort of issues?
Similar issues, but presented in different ways. So in childhood, it might be like anxiety about getting started in something, or a lot of like sensory overwhelm and managing that. In teens, we see a lot of anxiety, but it might be due to peer pressure, not fitting in, not really understanding that they need to release a lot of the time, and a lot more masking in adolescence as well. So by masking, that's like hiding their needs in order to fit in with their peers. So then, you know, the school day ends and they've been holding it together all day, and one small thing might happen and they just, it's, you know, I call it the 3 p.m. flop. That's my way of describing it. So that sort of stuff, obviously, as well as kids get older, social intricacies get a little bit more complex as well, and that can be really difficult to manage if a child already struggles socially or prefers to socialise in a different way.
Yeah. I'm thinking back on a conversation I had a couple of days ago with a patient of mine. I've been treating her, and her daughter has come in with her just to observe, and because her daughter was with her at the time. Her daughter's probably 13 or 14, I'd like to say. And the mum's really struggling with the daughter in the sense that in the last year or two, she's become a lot more reserved and to herself. And I think a lot of parents out there are probably going through a similar sort of thing. I've heard it numerous times. Why, generally, like speaking, why is that the case with girls specifically compared to boys? And is there anything parents can do to help them get out of that rut a little bit quicker?
I think, especially with girls, there's so many hormone changes happening
at
that like pre-adolescence at that age, and that definitely impacts how we, you know, see ourselves, number one, but how we interact with others, number two. And I think, I don't know about your experience growing up, but as a girl, like, girls are mean.
My wife tells me all the time, and I honestly
mean.
didn't realize until my daughter went to, like, as young as childcare.
Yeah.
So she was 4, and I remember it very vividly. I walked in to pick her up one day, and she was in tears. And I'm like, what's going on? And she said, all the other girls have their hair down and my hair is up.
Aww.
And they're making fun of me because my hair is up. And I'm like, you're 4 years old.
I know.
You wouldn't believe it. But
yeah, seriously. And that's the thing, like, girls can be really, really mean. And I think that does impact our self-esteem. Where I think it is the fine line, and this is something I know I'm going to struggle with when my oldest starts school next year, and I know 100% this will be my biggest issue, is as parents, we want to jump in and we want to fix whatever's wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes we go in problem-solving mode because, like, we love our kids so much, we want to be able to support them. But I think a lot of the time, our kids just want us to listen. So I actually say to parents, when your child starts opening up to you about something, say to them straight off the bat, hey, before we continue, are you after advice or are you after someone to just listen to what's going on? And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they'll say, I just want someone to listen. And so if we don't ask that question and we just jump in trying to help them out of love and try and problem solve, they're going, well, I'm not getting what I want out of this conversation, so maybe next time I won't have this conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just listen. That's your best parenting tool, is your ears.
Yeah. And sometimes jumping in, trying to fix the problem for them isn't helping them grow as a person as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's not helping them problem solve. And sometimes, like, you know, there have been times, similar thing at daycare, you know, my son's come home and he said, someone did this, this and this. And I've said, like, is this something you want me to talk to your teacher about, or is this something that you've got under control? And he's like, I don't need anyone right now. And then there are other times where he's like, no, I was at, like, you know, I've seen a bite mark on his shoulder, and I was like, this is something I have to tell the teacher about. You can come with me to tell the teacher, or I can do it without you. So just involving them in the process. If you do jump into problem-solving mode, letting them know why, you know, talking about safety and how that always comes first. But I promise you, 9 times out of 10, they just want to vent. They just want someone to listen to what's going on. And I think it goes against all our instincts not to problem solve, but that's the best thing we can do for them. And also so that they can then develop those social problem solving skills as they do get older and they do try to get to high school. Because imagine getting to high school and you've never had to solve a problem because your mom's done it all for you.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like one of my cousins is about to get married and he's like never cooked a meal in his life because, you know, his Arabic mum has always done it for him. It's like a similar thing, but, you know, worse.
Yeah. So the way you word things to a child is very important then.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's important in that, you know, kids are sponges and they pick up on everything we're saying. But if you're a parent listening to this, I don't want you to think like, oh my God, I need to be so careful about everything I say, because it's not about getting it right all the time. And there's absolutely no such thing as a perfect parent. In fact, if anyone tells you that they get it right all the time, delete their number because they're just a big liar. Yeah. But it's just about being as consistent as possible. And I think consistency, as with anything, but especially with parenting, is key because it's predictable, it's familiar, it's calming for kids. And if we do make a mistake, you know, as I've probably made 10 mistakes today parenting wise. It's going to happen. It's just about repairing that. So if we yell at our kids and, you know, we're feeling a bit guilty about it because maybe it was not a them problem, it was us, we're, you know, last straw sort of thing, say sorry. Saying sorry to our kids and owning up to mistakes is one of the most powerful things we can do, because it shows kids that you can come back when you've messed up.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just about finding that line between like being a parent with boundaries, but also being kind and approachable and empathetic to what's going on for them as well.
Kids are very forgiving.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like, this is the worst. I've ruined it.
Yeah.
And I go in and I'm like, oh my God, Mum wants to apologise.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And he's like, what are you talking about? Yeah. He's completely forgotten about it.
Especially boys.
Yeah, and I've created a half an hour like apology letter.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
Kids are forgiving and resilient.
Totally.
And we sometimes forget that as parents.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions for you as we're speaking. What's the main difference between, say, autism and ADHD? So how can we differentiate between the two?
It's funny because a lot of people, I think autism and ADHD are quite similar.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of symptom overlap with autism and ADHD, but it comes down to like getting down to the why that symptom might be there. So I'll use the example of eye contact. Uh-huh. So a lot of autistic people are extremely uncomfortable providing eye contact. It increases anxiety levels, and it's just a really uncomfortable experience for them.
Yeah.
A lot of kids with ADHD don't offer eye contact either. Now, the difference would be for an autistic. Now, if you're going like, okay, is this an autistic symptom here or is this a symptom of ADHD?
Yeah.
It would be going, why aren't they giving eye contact? For an autistic child, it might be very uncomfortable. It might be anxiety provoking. It might be, a social thing. They don't feel comfortable in that social situation and being put on, on edge. For an ADHD, it might be they just they're not paying attention long enough to provide the eye contact.
That makes sense.
Do you know what I mean? So it's about, I could go on about that for literally 3 hours, but it's just about going, okay, there might be a lot of symptom overlap, but the underlying reason for that presentation is very, very different. And I guess that's my job as the psychologist to really like nut all of that out and figure it out.
Okay. So I've got this question from a patient as well. They've got kids that go to school. Mm-hmm. And, in school, sometimes you get kids that either are slower in terms of their learning potential or developing a little bit differently to their peers when you're comparing it to their peers. And then oftentimes they get referred to seeing the counsellor or a psychologist. How can we differentiate between something that's a developmental issue or just a natural part of that child?
It's tricky because kids just develop at their own pace. You even look at like early milestones, and the developmentally appropriate period for those is insane. So walking, for example, anywhere between 9 months and 18 months is considered normal.
Yeah.
18, that's half their life.
That's right.
And you're like, anywhere between that is so normal sort of thing. So it's really a matter of, if you as a parent have a concern, go to the teacher and chat to them. The teacher might say, yeah, look, they are a little bit behind, but they're making progress and they're working towards it. Or they are a little bit behind, but let's try, a reading recovery program to get their literacy skills back up a little bit. Or the teacher might say, look, they are a little bit behind and I'm giving them that one-on-one intervention, but I'm not quite seeing the progress that we would expect to be seeing given the amount of support that the child is receiving. So it's just about going like, okay, well, let's get everyone's opinion here. If I have a concern, I go to the daycare educators first. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
Stop freaking out.
Yeah.
Go home. And that 1 time out of 10, if they agree with something, I'll go, okay, great. Well, let's, who do I have to see, sort of thing. So I think it's about, sometimes you don't know whether it's developmentally appropriate or whether it's something that you need to get extra support for until you seek out that extra support. And like I said before about, you might check in with a psychologist or an OT or a speechy and just you'll either leave with reassurance that everything's okay, or you'll leave with a support plan to get them back to where they need to be, or to figure out how to support them moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's just about talking to stakeholders, getting all the information and moving forward from there.
Is there something like a red flag straight away that'll tell you that this child needs to go and see a psychologist?
Not necessarily. I think if children are becoming increasingly withdrawn, obviously if we're seeing any form of self-harm as well, immediately go get some support in that regard. That a lot of kids do tend to verbalize as well, like, I wish I wasn't here. Anything that kind of indicates that their mood is at breaking point, I would absolutely see a psychologist immediately.
Yep.
In terms of a list of red flags, it's probably not something really, it's more about like how far away they are from their own baseline. So everyone's baseline is going to be totally different. If your child is naturally quite reserved, naturally quite withdrawn, maybe they really enjoy spending time alone in their room because from a sensory perspective, that's their calm down space, then that wouldn't be a concern for me.
That's normal.
Yeah, but if you have a child that usually plays 6 sports and never likes being alone, who all of a sudden is withdrawing from all those sports and is spending a lot of time alone, well, then definitely that would be something I would be seeking support for. So I guess you guys know your children best, and if they are veering from their own baseline, go get some support.
Yep, that's a good tip. In your line of work, in your industry, I'm sure you'd be seeing a lot of myths out there that are being spread across the internet and across social media. Are there a few key ones that stand out for you that we need to kind of debunk?
There's a lot out there from a parenting perspective.
From a parenting perspective.
I think
that's what people, like a lot of parents will be listening to this, and a lot of our patients that have walked in have asked similar sort of things in the past. So.
I think there's probably 3 main ones. Is that you have to be a perfect parent all the time. Research shows us that that's just so far from the truth. It's just, like I said before, it's about being consistent, about repairing when things go wobbly, and just I think as well, like working on yourself as before you try and work with your child. So a lot of the time we throw around like emotional regulation. My child can't regulate their emotions, and we seem to have this idea that children need to be coming out of the womb with a full set of self-regulation skills. And that's just not the case. A lot of adults don't know how to regulate their emotions because our generation was never really taught how to do that. It wasn't the focus. It wasn't something that we were expected to do. We were meant to hide our emotions. So a lot of adults are learning to regulate their own emotions, and that has to happen before we can help our kids. Because kids learn self-regulation through co-regulation. And if we as an adult can't help them co-regulate, how are they going to learn to do that? So I think that's a really important one. The second one is, that thing that you see online all the time that's like, you only have 18 summers with your kids. Make them count. And like,
I've seen that everywhere.
Just really pisses me off. Like, honestly, every time I see that, I want to throw the phone out the window. Because, number one, it guilts parents into thinking that they only have this really short amount of time. And I'm not going to sit there and like feel guilty about the fact that I have a career and my kids go to school a couple of days, like daycare a couple of days a week, I think it's about, like, I'm 34 and I go on holidays with my parents all the time. If you have a really good relationship with your kids and you build that foundation of emotional safety, you have way more than 18 summers.
Because you do feel guilty when you see stuff like that. I feel guilty when I see it.
I feel so guilty.
I'm like, shit, I'm at work. Like, I'm sitting at work. I can be spending time with my kids. But I do have a bit of a balance where I finish work and I do spend time with them. But when you see that,
seriously,
you're like, I don't want to work anymore. I want to sit at home 100%. All day.
100%. And then, a couple of nights a week, like, my kids go to bed at about 6:30, and sometimes a couple of nights a week I'll leave the house at like 6:15 to go to the gym. So just before they go to bed. And one night my son was like, why are you going to the gym? And I was like, because mummy has spent all day working and looking after you guys. She needs something to do for herself. I need to do something that makes me feel good, and moving my body makes me feel good. And he was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then a few weeks later, I was like, I'm going to the gym. He's like, time to move your body and make yourself feel good. I was like, yeah, it is. You know what I mean? So I think it's important for kids to understand that, like, we're their parents and we're their whole world, but we're also an individual, and we need to look after ourselves as well. And I think there's a reason, when you're on a plane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on before helping your child, because you're no good to them if you haven't looked after yourself. So I think all those things you see about, like, you've only got your 18 summers or being the perfect parent and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't actually make sense when you look at it from a scientific standpoint. You need to look after yourself before you're able to support your kids. And if that means going to the gym, or that means going, sending them to daycare a couple of times a week, so be it. Yeah.
Awesome. One last question then, Emily. Tell me a little bit about the Parenting Forum. I know you've set something up for parents. to make it more accessible for them. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically I created something called the Family Forum.
The Family Forum, sorry.
That's all right. It's an online platform. And what it is so many parents were coming to me saying, like, I don't know where to start. I think something's wrong about who do I go to? Do I spend $1,000 at the pediatrician? Do I go to the speechy? I can't afford all of them. So I was like, okay, well, these parents are seeking a platform that is cost effective where they can get information on a range of things. So in there, I've created a workshop library, and I've interviewed pediatricians, speechies, OTs, nutritionists, ophthalmologists, sleep specialists, everyone across all areas of development, so that a parent can watch the video, hopefully get their answers to the questions that they have, and then go, okay, well, maybe I don't need the speechy, maybe I need the OT, or maybe I should start with the dietitian, that sort of thing. And then there's also a private group where they can drop questions to me. We do a monthly group call, so that, like, literally for the price it would cost you to get some avo toast and a coffee, you can ask a clinical psychologist all the questions that you might have, that maybe you don't need to book regular sessions with a psych, but you might have questions that you want to run by them, and I can point you in the right direction as to where you might need to go.
That's a great idea. So can anyone access this?
Any parent can access it. Yeah. Just it's on my website. Just click on the Family Forum tab and all your membership options are there.
I'll definitely make sure to spread the word.
Thank you.
And we'll send it to our patients too, because I said, we honestly get so many people coming in, exactly what you've just said now, so confused. They don't know who to see. I've done a pediatrics course before, so I see a lot of kids. I don't treat as much anymore. But parents come in all the time, they say, we don't know whether we need to see a pediatrician. We don't know if our child needs to see a psychologist or an OT. And I try and direct them as best I can.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a really...
That's it. And for me, it was all about, like, making it financially accessible. So an annual membership to the Family Forum is less than the price of one visit with your pediatrician, and less than the price of most psychologists.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really...
And it's an annual thing. So you get 12 sessions with me to ask any question that you want, and access to an ever-growing workshop library.
That's incredible. Great work.
Thanks.
Thanks, Emily. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.